So far, 60. I know we had like 160 that signed up with interest. So maybe we'll give it a few more minutes and see how many more show up before we jump into it. But I think today will be an interesting little update call. Um, we'll talk about obviously tokenomics. We're not going to do a super deep dive into the functionality, but everyone should have a good idea of the outcome of the new tokenomics, kind of how they work. We'll touch a little bit on the satellite, obviously, and the purpose of it, because I think there's been a little bit of a confusion from some people on what it actually does and how it's going to function in regards to rewards and community and all that. Some geosigner stats and some updates on shipping of the high-fix devices. So some exciting stuff.
Full of stuff.
Full of stuff. Yeah, and I have 45 minutes, and then I have a hard cutoff. But we'll have plenty of time to dive into everything. So we'll go through all the updates, and then we'll open up for questions. Or do you think that works, Mike?
Yeah, we did not have. I didn't really push for. Basically, when we were trying to schedule, we were going to possibly have a stage earlier this month, but obviously Robin was in Hong Kong, so couldn't have it last week. So I did not push for AMA questions. We really have none for this call, so that'll take away some time right there.
Perfect. But I guess since we're a couple of minutes over, and this will is it a recording, Mike?
It is recording.
Perfect. So any slackers or anyone that misses it can watch it after. But so let's discuss tokenomics a little bit first. So really, I think what a lot of people in the community have seen and what we've seen from a few months ago is that we saw that the current formula and tokenomics model wasn't balanced well enough. You had some people in an empty area earning several hundred X the amount of an equally good provider in a saturated area. And it just became really confusing. And, people started questioning like, well, why should I join in an area if there's already a lot of antennas? And that's really not how we wanted the formula to work. I mean, the few things that we want to make sure happens with the formula is one, if you are first, it should be valuable because it's valuable for us as a network to get coverage somewhere we do not have coverage. But we still want you to feel like if you're a great provider, no matter where you deploy, whether it's saturated, empty, or not, it should be worthwhile. Those were like the main two things we wanted to fix. We have a super great data scientist on board that's been working on this for the last couple of months, done a lot of simulation. And so we're doing some slight changes to the tokenomics. One change is the distribution schedule. We'll go from 40 years to 20. So it will be cut way shorter. And just before people start questioning what happens after 20 years, what will happen is that the buyback and burn mechanism will transition towards a buyback and redistribute towards the end of the distribution schedule. So essentially, we use the revenue to buy back and redistribute based on the same formula, allowing the cycle to continue into infinity, essentially. So with thesis says it will be dead in 20 years. But anyway, 20 years gives us more flexibility in the rewards. The tokenomics will be in two phases, or the distribution schedule. First phase is 8 years, which we call more of like the growth phase, which are more with a more aggressive distribution schedule. And the last 12 years will be more of a maintenance type of phase, where we assume at that point that the business is very well established and has big demand side, and we can actually function or not as an aggressive distribution. We're no longer going to have multiple buckets like we have now. Now we have performance reward, we have base reward, and we have early participation reward. We're going to have two buckets instead, essentially a performance bucket that gets distributed based on this formula that we will discuss in detail when we come out with the new light paper, white paper, and a blog post. And then it will have an early participant reward. But so what this formula does in simple terms is that it can analyze providers in a region and determine the value of a provider, whether it's empty or whether it's saturated, and you get rewarded based on essentially the value of how good you are. Uh, and then the early participation reward essentially rewards you just based on how many hexagons you cover. So whether you're in a saturated area or in an empty area, it's the number of hexagons you cover. And when we do the simulations with the new formula, we saw that on the old one, there's a really small amount of providers earning a ton of tokens. And then we have a really long tail of everyone else earning very little. Now it kind of moves this big chunk to the middle. So it kind of, for lack of a better word, democratizes the community in a better way, where it spreads the tokens way more evenly and fairly for the people that are good. It makes a huge, huge difference in the distribution. It's still very much worthwhile being first, but now it's also worthwhile being in a saturated area as long as you have a great setup. So that's just like super, super basic on it. I know you guys probably gonna have a ton of questions, but rest assured, we will come out with very detailed documentation on how it actually works and all that. But the main thing is that the tokenomics now are way better balanced, way better for the community, and way more scalable. So it's worthwhile deploying anywhere as long as you have a good setup. So before we go on to the next topic, does anyone have any burning questions on the tokenomics? Or Mike, do you think we should just jump in and go through everything and then take questions?
I think we should, based on how many
Run through it.
topics we're going to have,
Yeah.
I think we should probably take questions now to some extent and then just cut it off after like 5 minutes and then move on to the next one. But that way we'll handle some of this stuff, because otherwise
Yeah.
we're just going to have a ton of varied questions from all different topics. But as Robin said, we're not going to get too much in the weeds today. It will become more obvious when we distribute all the documentation. I think from my perspective, in me trying to explain our reward system to other people today, just, family, friends, whatever, it can become challenging. This is going to simplify it dramatically. It'll be easier for an average person on the street to understand. It'll be easier for you to understand, and it makes things, in my opinion, more fair and balanced. So I think these are good moves.
Yeah. And real quick, Quagga asked when we will see the new tokenomics in action. So first, we're coming out with the documentation because the tokenomics are done. So everyone gets a chance to see them, and then we do the recalculation based on new tokenomics. So everyone will see what that actually means on earnings, and then we will implement it. And yeah, the total supply stays the same. So that's it. We'll get the questions later. But from the GeoCyner stats, Mike, do you want to go over that a little bit?
Yeah. All right. So basically just a few things to go through with the geosigners and maybe a little bit with the client itself. Obviously with the new client, we have the ability now through the heartbeats and everything to gather more information. You can probably see that now on the station's statistics page, which we are continuing to enhance. There's a cool new set of information coming in the next push to live. And this is just helping us, I don't know, maybe debug issues faster. If you've got questions, it helps you have the information at your fingertips in case you have questions. Community can help as well. Just make sure you never expose anything that is specific to you, like your exact location or anything. But in doing that with the new client, we get all the cool stats about what's going on with geosigners, what's onboarding, what's not. So quick rundown, just to remind everybody, the deadline to have it installed and running is March 17th. I would advise you don't wait until March 17th. I don't even know what day that is, but I would advise don't wait till that day, last minute. There are a small percentage of people that have some challenges. Others, it just flies right through and it's done. But don't be the person that's caught last minute and then wonders what's going on and you lose on rewards. We are sending out a reminder email to the people who haven't set up yet. Right now, we have about 70% of the geosigners have been connected. It's pretty good progress so far. We also know there's about 8 or 9% that are waiting on one of the third-party solutions to release their update. So that'll bring us up closer to 80% total. Unfortunately, we do have about 60 shipments involved in some sort of shipping nonsense or shenanigans. That's basically either they're slow, there's a customs situation, somebody entered the wrong address by accident when they ordered, stuff like that. We're working through them daily. We have somebody tirelessly dealing with the third party logistics, two people at times, trying to work through all these issues. So bear with us if you've got one stuck in shipping still. If you haven't heard from your geosigner, it hasn't said hello at your doorstep yet, wouldn't hurt to reach out with a ticket just to make sure we haven't missed you. I think most of you have. As a side note of the client, we can tell that 50 of the stations that have a geosigner installed do not have their firmware updated. So if you want to check to make sure that you're not one of those people, check your stations page and look on the geosigner on the right-hand side for that station, and you should see either a serial number if it linked properly, or you'll see waiting to link. If you see waiting to link, you might have an issue. You might need to contact us. That could be a firmware related thing, or it could be something else. The only caveat to that, if you are waiting on the previously mentioned third-party tool to finish their implementation, yours is going to say waiting to link if you already put it in the device. So don't worry about that. But if you're not running third party and it's sitting there on waiting to link for more than a day, reach out to us, please. Two more things. We have less than 5% of our stations are in the wrong hex. I would say that's actually good. Those people either need to claim the correct location that their geosigner is actually in or move to an available location. They can leverage family or friends. We know there is a small contingency of alpha and early beta people from the original plan that we're still working out the solution for. Those people just have hexes that we assign them. If you're not one of those people, don't worry about it. If you are one of those people, I'm just saying it so you know we haven't forgotten about you. Last note. This is kind of funny. About 10% of the stations, either with or without geosigner, do not have read SB running. Hopefully that's no one on this call because you guys are all active. But if you happen to be listening to this on YouTube and you haven't checked on your station in a while, it's super easy to check. You're not earning rewards. If you're not earning rewards, read SB is down. That can be from somebody bumping the SDR, the little USB stick that receives the signals, or from actually a variety of things if it's been sitting around for a very, very long time. So I would suggest if you haven't looked at your station in many months and you just think it's on cruise control, just double check real quick and make sure that it's being rewarded recently. You can check your local TAR 1090 to see if, like, I don't know, are there planes on there? If there aren't, you're probably down. So I just want to encourage everybody, if you're one of the 10%, get back online. Big things are coming. That was it, Robin.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for the updates. That's super cool. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm like, I have to just say, like, the team has done awesome from manufacturing this, geosigner. We had a lot of hiccups in the beginning to getting it designed. I personally love the design and the packaging. We went all out, especially considering we gave away almost 2,000 for free. So we were happy to do it because without the community, we wouldn't be here. But yeah, overall, really happy, but would definitely appreciate if people update their stations. That would be very helpful. Okay, so on the satellite, which obviously we are very, very excited about the satellite. I think there's two cool things about the satellite. Most people just think about the satellite. But a lot of times in these calls, people ask us, like, who are some of our paying customers? And we can never say because we have these strict NDAs. Well, now we can finally say the first paying customers we had that started about 6 months after we launched was Spire Global. They've been buying our data since about June last year. Spire Global, obviously publicly traded, big aerospace company, and they buy our data and fuse it with their satellite data stream. And we've gotten fantastic data validation from them. So I think for me, the satellite is obviously amazing, but it's also amazing to me to finally not have to say, we have paying customer, we can't say who it is. Now we can actually at least mention that. So I thought that was super exciting. But with the satellite, the main function of the satellite, because with one satellite, you do not get all of Earth. But with one satellite over 24 hours, you get pretty much every section of Earth based on the simulation we've received. And we will only use the satellite to cross-check the data that the satellite captures with the data in the same area from the ground stations. And that's just to add another layer of security to the network that no other network has. So essentially, when we go to sell this data, we have a much better model. Like when we benchmark our data in our network versus the competing networks, just some stats here. When we take the competing networks, the market leaders, 60% of their entire network has less than a 100-mile radius of coverage per station. When we do our network, 60% of our network has more than 150-mile range or coverage. So that clearly shows that the model works. You guys are doing an amazing job of optimizing these stations and installing them in good locations. So we have a better model. We have much higher security on the hardware now. Like we're the only network with a proof of location. We're the only network with that can cryptographically validate the station and the data. And then we combine that with a space-based validator to add a third layer to this whole model. So the satellite will not earn rewards. They will not compete with the ground stations. The ground stations are very much needed, which is the reason, obviously, we're selling data to a satellite network because it is needed. But it will enhance our commercial value. So that's the purpose of the satellite. So just to clear up any misunderstanding of, oh, will the ground stations go obsolete? They will not. Anything else on that? No, I think that's for the satellite. Obviously, we cannot announce the exact launch date because before SpaceX announces, and they announce 24 hours before, but it's in the near future. So I think a lot of people probably have some questions about the HiFix shipping update. I can start with one thing because I saw a question. There's a lot of confusion on why it says May on the resellers. So the first, I think, 2,500 devices that were sold will start shipping next week. Anything sold after the first 2,500 devices will start shipping according to HiFix around May. Obviously, when you set a ship date, you try to not overpromise. Sometimes you try not to overpromise and it gets delayed anyway, which happened to us by a month. But that's the next batch. So everyone that ordered, I don't know exact date, I can find out, but everyone that's ordered quite early, your devices will start shipping next week. So I think that was the main points, Mike. Did I miss anything on the satellite or the HiFix shipping update?
Real quick comment towards Spire Global, just the fact that as obviously they have helped us while we grew our API. They were instrumental in helping identify areas that we need to grow into and add to our offerings. So I think that was pretty cool for us to have a partner in that to help identify anything that we need to enhance or work on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they obviously kind of took a chance on us. We were so early, but they identified I think they were quite early in seeing that this is interesting what we're doing. It's different than anyone else. Our growth rate is more than 6 times faster than any other network has been in the past. And when we compare our data on a global level with the networks that have, at least on paper, 10 or 20 times the amount of stations, in the areas where they're supposed to cover really well, we still fill in a lot of gaps just because of the fact that we have better stations and better optimized stations.
And for the high fix shipping update, just to be clear, I mean, Robin can confirm otherwise in the future and everything, but at this moment, as he said, we don't know like what a potential cutoff is. We're not even sure how all the logistics work between high fix and the distributors. We're not involved in any of that. Just like we've said from the beginning, we're not involved in any of the supply chain aspect of these devices. But that also means we don't know if there was certain amounts allotted to distributors or if it's how that breakdown works. So I know people have asked in Discord, and they will probably continue to ask, like, especially after this call, like when is the cutoff? When does mine? How do I make sure that mine is in the first batch? I made air quotes there. If everybody saw, I said batch, but anyway. So we don't have the answer to that right now. So you can ask, and I'm just going to have to tell you, unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, I will reach out to Hyfix and ask for a date. And we can write an update in Discord, and then with the date and stuff like that. Because I don't want to say something because most likely it will be wrong since it would just be a guess.
Lastly, real quick on
Mhm.
Hyfix, we are in the process of documentation, and we've got documentation for onboarding and some installation type instructions, and we are reviewing those. They will make it out before the devices ship, and with any luck, we will actually have a video of some sorts out as well for onboarding. It's not actually that difficult. So it may be a really, really short video, but I know people like to look at screens and see other people do the stuff that they're about to do. So we'll see what we can get done.
Perfect. Um, let's. I'm gonna scroll up here, Mike, and let's go to some questions. Sorry, guys, I'm scrolling. Yeah, nice to have some Wingbits people in here. Savannah, awesome to have you here. Question for later, busy exec. Any idea how many folks have GeoSigner installed and connected? Well, Mike, you answered that. About 70%, right?
Yes, 70%.
Perfect.
What time are you at? What minute after the hour?
I need to be done in 20 minutes.
No, I'm at in the chat right
Oh.
now. What you're looking at?
I am at 5:34 p.m. So Kron, sir.
34. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Zeggy Boy asked if it will be recorded. It is recorded. Yana answered. Perfect. Quaiwaga, well, we'll see the tokenomics in action. So on a time frame, I'd say like we'll do recalculation stuff within the next 10, 14 days, make sure everything works, and then before that we release all the documentation. Still 10 billion total supply. Busy exec asked.
Busy exec, you're asking about total coverage view back anytime soon. It was submitted as a suggestion and already on the feedback site, and we are reviewing it. I hear you. It is kind of cool. We're gonna try. We'll probably handle this on a stage, a different stage, or maybe in Discord. But we are going to try to implement some ways that we can help you guys help us in a more direct form using the feedback site and be able to track that stuff. And I've already started to pull some of the things are missing off of the current suggestions board that is up there. I've already pulled them off. You might see it. It's, I don't even remember what I call it. Some kind of official something or other for Wingbits, but it's basically things that we've already had suggested that we were already looking at possibly doing. It would be great if people, if I could remember the name of that official something or other, if you go to that board and upvote the things that you are interested in. It is on the normal feedback.wingbits.com site. And that official board is something we can kind of get some traction on it and actually develop or release. some of the things you guys have been asking for.
Perfect. Perfect.
I'm also learning
Thanks,
I
Mike.
can't read and answer at the same time, especially when I'm
Yeah.
getting beep booped. Yep.
Yeah, but the next one was, I think we kind of answered, but Colorado Cowboy asked about the delays, and that it says May on the resellers' sites now. So first 2,500 are ordered. They start shipping next week. The batch that's being manufactured after that, they're saying May. I don't know if that's uh, being very conservative or if that's the case, but we will find out more information on that.
Fachos asking about, oh, thanks, Doc Brown, by the way. Thank you. Um, Fachos asking if you can order a geosigner. At this point, you can open a ticket and we can talk, but we have an extremely limited supply. We originally made enough so that we would have all the units for the people that were granted a geosigner, as well as the people who had ordered, and then an extra pool for, emergencies or whatever else in case we had hardware issues. Luckily, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, knock on wood right now. We've had a very small number of defective units go out. I think we're at somewhere either like 5, possibly 6 hardware failures, which is way below the industry standard. So I'm going to, again, knock on wood. Um,
Yeah.
we've had, I think, 1 or 2 bad antenna units. So overall, things have gone really well, but that does mean we do have a limited supply. I don't know if we can help at this point, but I'm open to a conversation. So make a ticket.
Shawai says, I like this one. What is the coolest place someone's put the Wingbits stickers? Yeah, if anyone has some cool places, post some pictures in somewhere in our Discord. That'd be fun to see.
I just have to comment. I put one in my attic last night.
I put one on my computer.
Well, I had to go to my attic. I finally installed the geosigner on the one in my attic. And I figured, you know what? If I take a sticker up there and slap it on one of the trusses or whatever, who knows, decade from now, somebody will walk up there and say a Wingbit sticker, and that could be a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah. 120 dB says that the satellite data could be used to draw the map where the ground station coverage is lacking. Yeah, yeah. And we have it's going to be interesting to see all the use cases we can get out of the data. We know a few, but I'm sure we'll find out a few more. And then hopefully in future we can shoot up some more satellites.
One cool aspect, just real quick on satellite coverage, is if you look at most tracking networks and you're viewing craft that are over the oceans, you generally see an estimated location. That's because there's not ground stations anywhere nearby that can like validate that they have made it to that point at that time, and they're meeting the expectations of their arrival time. So things like satellites can give you that little extra data value, so you can be like, oh yeah, the plane's exactly where it probably should be in the middle of the ocean at this point in time. So those are little cool
Yeah.
things that you can get from that.
And then Mike Alpendev said, "What's considered an early contributor?" I assume this is a reference to what you said with some maybe geosigners having overlapping hexes from the early contributors. And I responded, if that's the case anyway, it's like when you used to have to buy the hexagons because it was a different model. So if that's what you're asking, Alpen, that was kind of my answer. If I'm misunderstanding, please let me know.
Yep.
And then A and B says, if I'm talking about the hex refund, no, this is more like Mike said that there are a few devices that maybe have overlapping hexes from the early contributors when you had to buy hexes and it was a different model. But regarding the hex refund, we will also come up with some updates on that one because on the initial one when we came out, it's pretty long distribution time. We're looking at making that one more reasonable for the people that took the tokens instead of the refund.
Yeah, and again, if any of this like prior planned hex stuff doesn't make any sense to you, it doesn't need to. Like only the people that it applies to need to actually care about it. So don't worry if you don't understand it. Doesn't really matter to you.
Yeah. It was back in the time when we didn't know better.
Yeah, we were living in caves.
Uh, Ticker and buses just plug them in, turn them on, or no? I don't know if you're referring to the new devices coming or the geosigners, but the geosigners plug them in, and when the new ones arrive, plug them in as well and turn them on.
Follow the instructions.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
would be my advice. Follow instructions. We will have it up on our doc site.
Yeah. And then Grumpy asks a great question here. Says, what about talk about tokenomics changing if you're getting low level altitude aircraft or near airports? No change as of now. So essentially, the first change we want to fix just the base model. Uh, in the base model, there is a substantial amount of tokens, still over the ocean that are unclaimed. We will implement the low altitude bonuses as well. That will just come at a later stage because we need it's just a lot of stuff to do. So airport coverage and low altitude will still be worthwhile. It's just not implemented with this change, but it will come on top of this. So hopefully that makes sense.
And with this new simpler model and how everything's looking, it's also easier for us to figure out these potential other bonus or add-on kind of pools for specific stuff, like you're at an
Exactly.
airport.
Yeah. A and B asked if we have an idea of token price on launch. We do not know yet, but just to be transparent, like even if we did, I don't think we could say from a legal point of view. But we actually don't know yet. We are still discussing, trying to figure out the whole, exchange listings, where to launch and how to launch it in a good way. So nothing is decided yet. Yeah, Raptor Mining knows what's up. No price talk. Alp and Dev, are we still aiming to launch mainnet in March? So essentially what we have right now with Savannah's in this call, we're just outlining all the things that we need to have done well before mainnet. So we still have a soft goal now of really more likely April, because March is only a month away and there's a lot of things still that we need to do. And it's also depending on like if certain things needs to be in order, because rushing a launch versus pushing a few weeks out is a massive mistake, because we will do everyone in the community a disservice by launching prematurely. But yeah, so it's not, we're not going to move it 6 months longer out. It's weeks we're talking about. So we'll come out with more details on more on an exact date fairly soon.
Chiku, after
So
recalculation, you want to answer that, Robin?
yeah, I actually got this. Yeah, so after recalculation, will anyone have less rewards than now? So if you were you had an amazing station in a completely empty area, your rewards may go down very, very slightly, but it will not be, it will be maybe a couple of percent or so, very, very little. But if you have a great station in, for example, Germany, and you're covering an airport and you have a large coverage, your rewards will go up a lot because you're a great provider, even though it's saturated. So people that are first in areas will still be very well off. It's still very much worthwhile, pretty much as much as it is now. But the good providers in saturated areas will do a lot better than they do now.
If I could just add on to alleviate any concerns that come out of this discussion, it is less than 10% will see some kind of token rewards reduction. As Robin mentioned, the reduction is actually not very much. And the other 90% will have sometimes very little to no change. And then sometimes a significant change to the positive. So it all depends on the new model and how well your station is performing versus others and how well it's performing in general. Like, again, our advice is always don't run your antenna in a bathtub. Don't put it in the basement. You can have the station there, but make sure you run the antenna outside. Try to get as high up as possible. Grumpy's going to love me saying this, outside and as high as possible to clear all the surrounding obstacles such as trees, other houses, stuff like that. You want line of sight to the horizon. It will still work in an attic. Ha, grumpy. But you do unfortunately lose signal. So I'm not performing as well as I could in an attic, but it is still working. You just don't want it in the basement. You don't want it in the middle of a living room with all kinds of double or triple pane glass windows around and concrete walls. You will, just like you are now, you're still going to have coverage issues. You're still going to have rewards issues because you're only reaching a small amount. I've seen plenty of people, the stations that have one or two hexes, and that's it for coverage. And that means you're covering, I don't know, I don't even remember the mileage, but not very much. You're surrounding your neighborhood and part of your city. Every antenna has the opportunity to cover many more hexes, somewhere at least in the 10 to 15 range, even if you've got some obstacles around you. So everybody should be striving to have good coverage. Don't expect that
Yep.
any reward system is going to help you if you're running it in the basement, is my final advice.
Perfect. Thanks for filling in there, Mike. Okay, next one is Grumpy. What about a way to see total rewards per day? Right now, you see 7 days or more. Actually, don't know where that is on the roadmap. Do you have any insights on that, Mike, or we can come back to Grumpy with more info?
We have seen the suggestion. We have not made any progress. We haven't actually really discussed it that much internally. Grumpy, you're talking like, excuse me, on like the 7 day chart or something. Are you talking about a total at the top of the bar to sum all of the stations for that day?
We'll see. We'll see what it
Yes.
says.
Okay. Then
Uh,
yes, we haven't investigated it yet. It's a great suggestion. I will write it down after this call. And if we don't already have something on the feedback site, or you can post it on the feedback site. Just saying.
Unit asks if the setup can be made remotely if we have hosts far away. How difficult is it compared to GeoNet? So it's definitely not more difficult than GeoNet. Actually, that's one of the little reasons we for the slight delay as well as to make the onboarding a little easier. So, Mike, do you have anything to add on? But it should be fine doing it remotely if you have a host.
Yes, you can do it remotely. Excuse me. If the station is at your remote host and you haven't actually looked at it or taken down details ahead of time, you may have to reach out and talk to them or whatever. But follow the instructions. It should be pretty straightforward. I don't know if I'd have my grandmother do it, but she's dead, so she probably wouldn't do it. You could do it remotely. Just make sure that the person has it installed or you've already pre-installed it. But if you're there and pre-installing, I guess you do it while you're on site. I don't know. I guess we could have this discussion outside of the stage.
Mhm.
It really depends on what you're trying to do by setting it up remotely. Because someone physically has to install the station, so it has line of sight to the sky. If you're doing that, you might as well set it up then. That would be my
Yeah.
suggestion.
Just to be mindful of time, I only have 5 more minutes. But so LD asked who the target market is of this project. So like the business case of the project is a B2B project. So we're selling the data, and the customers range from obviously like Spire, aerospace company, to analytics providers that work with airplane leasing or risk management, or engine manufacturers, insurance companies within aviation, to AI companies that work on flight delay prediction models or gate slot optimization, carbon counting, to just airlines wanting data to either monitor a competitor's fleet to see which routes they struggle on in order to try to figure out, well, should we expand into a route where this airline is clearly struggling based on the data. So it's used in many segments of aviation for mainly for analysis type of purposes or monitoring. I missed a bunch there. There's more, but to be mindful of time. I think Ellen Jenkins said remote ID tracking timeline to be added to HiFix station. So everything is in the device for remote ID. It's just we need to turn it on when it's ready. So we don't know exactly when that will be. Right now, the drone industry is just not super mature. but it will come throughout this year.
How do you check your order errata? How do we check your order number? I bought it from Helium Deploy. Check your emails, contact Helium Deploy. Again, we are not involved in any of that supply chain stuff. So all we know is if you reserved your location, we know that you reserved your location. That's about the extent of our awareness of the orders.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, again, we have fairly little insight into that, so you're better off reaching out to Helium Deploy. And then, Mike, this one, Cronster says if a station says warning, no connection to server, and is showing offline, could that be the ADSB dongle?
Uh, Kronzer, make a ticket. Or, yeah, just make a ticket. It'll be
Yeah.
easier than the time we have left.
Yeah, Matt Electron says make sure to not repost your QR code from the instructions. Good point. Don't do that.
Yes.
Uh,
Never post anything that says secret on it as well, you know.
yeah, and then Grumpy has had one question here. So these new tokenomics will affect all our rewards from day one, 20 months ago. Yes, correct.
And we're pretty much out of time.
Yeah, I'm just gonna see if there's any super crucial ones. But for all the questions, there's so many that we don't have time to answer. I'm really sorry, but feel free to post the same questions in general, and we'll get them answered as we go. But new record today. I see Janal pointing out here over 80 people in the call, which is amazing. Really appreciate everyone being in the project and making it awesome and tuning in for this call. I'm personally super excited for everything that's going on with Better Tokenomics, the satellite launch, mainnet approaching, new deployments, and more paying customers. So very exciting. 2025 coming. Thanks again for being here. Appreciate it a lot, and I'll talk to you guys next stage. Mike, thanks so much for being in here, and to the whole Wingbits team for all the work.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.